The IQ Podcast. Discussion about cybersecurity, business intelligence, consulting, and DevOps. For the domain industry, by the domain industry. Hi everyone, I'm Pinky Brand, and welcome to the IQ Podcast. This is episode 14. Today I'm fortunate to have as our guest Mou Mukherjee. And Mou is a longtime friend of mine in the industry and is an industry veteran in the domain name world. And we have known each other for a number of years, and it's really, really a pleasure to have you on the show today, Mou.
Thank you, Pinky. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so excited that you invited me to speak on this platform here and to speak with you today. So I'm really honored to be here today with you.
Well, thank you very much. I want to let everybody know, normally when we're speaking and we're doing these podcasts, we tend to talk a lot about business and some strategies and that sort of thing. But today we're going to take it a little bit more on the personal side because I think Mou has a very interesting story to tell, being a woman in the domain name industry, a woman of color, a woman born in India, living in Canada, even doing business in China sometimes. So I think you really have an interesting story to share with our viewers and our listeners. First off, can you tell us about your journey in the domain industry and why did you get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Believe it or not, this is actually my third incarnation into the domain industry. So this is the third time I've been here, all different times in different roles. The first time was actually in the late 90s. I actually worked for a startup web hosting company. So over there, we were, was hosting, but we also registered domains too, although there was only 3 choices back then. There was, just a
Right.
.com and a .net and a .org. But it was, sometimes I say I've been registering domains since 1998. It dates me, but it also puts into perspective how long I've been doing this. And so, yeah, that was a really interesting role. It was a technical role. I was actually a sysadmin. It's something long time ago, so I don't talk about it a lot, but and it was a very startup environment. I had some of the best times of my life in that era, let's say. The second time I came back was with Two Cows and working on the registrar business. And so that was on the channel reseller side, and my role there was a marketing manager. And that was also an amazing experience too. I worked with some exceptionally talented folks there, especially on the marketing team. And I really had my first taste of international experience. In fact, the first time I went to Europe was, with Two Cows, and it was to Cologne for, I don't even know if it was called World Hosting Days. I think there was a name before that, but it was in Phantasialand. So again, it goes back pretty far. And so .cloud is actually now from the registry side is my third. I actually never planned it this way. It just happened this way, but it's been a really full experience, like a full from the reseller to the registrar to the registry side.
I got to go back a long time. I think I remember like Internet World and places like that, and I do recall meeting you. I think I first met you when you were at Two Cows, and there are definitely a lot of talented people over there. And I think we both share that the fact in the domain industry that we get to do a lot of traveling and that sort of thing. Did you actually leave the industry at any point, or did you leave and then come back, or?
Yeah, each time I left and I came back. And it's interesting because each experience that I had when I left, I felt it was really interesting to do something a little bit different, but also was so interesting to come back into industry with that, with that new perspective. So I remember the first time I left, I went to work for a more I guess like a value-added reseller. We were still selling, I was selling technical products, but it was there that I really learned about channel. I learned from the early big channel, tech channels. I learned about channel management. So that's where I learned about that. And then when I left Two Cows, I also had a really interesting journey because I went and worked on the agency side. So I worked for a marketing agency. And then later on, I started my own marketing consulting company. And there I worked with amazing technical brands like technology brands like Intel, HP, and I worked on the content marketing, social media, paid media. So it was really interesting to get that that sort of outside what people were doing from the outside. So basically, when I was working as on my own for my own consulting agency, that's when I got the call from a colleague, a former colleague, because I knew him from OpenSRS when I was there. I got the call from Francesco, and I will probably never forget that day. It was just one of those days you just remember. You get a call from an old friend, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm over here at. I don't know if you knew Aruba. I knew Aruba, the company behind .cloud is a large technology company in Italy. I knew about them because I knew from OpenSRS, but I didn't know they actually had purchased .cloud. And so Francesco asked me to, did I want to come back to the domain industry and help him build out .cloud. So that's kind of, how I started here. And, it was a little bit, there was a part of me that wasn't sure about coming back just because I had left so many times. But I think the thing that really, .cloud, the extension, was just such an exciting, like such a beautiful extension. And during that time, there was just so many interesting things going on. So that was one reason I came back. And then the other thing was just a chance to build a brand. Like, you don't get many chances to build a brand from the ground up. Like, so as a marketer, I was like, oh, this is amazing, And then it was also a chance to bring everything I had learned outside the industry back in for the third time. And, I really thought that there was a lot of value in the content side and the storytelling, the creative side, the communication side. So that I thought was an amazing opportunity. And second, it was, when someone calls you, when an old buddy calls you and says, hey, I'm thinking about you, you'd be perfect for the job. It was just so much, I have so much gratitude for that moment. Like, it's so much validation. Like, it's basically saying, hey, I see you, I hear you. It doesn't happen every day. So I did very much recognize the special moments of those beginning days.
I have to agree with you. I think, getting the opportunity to build a brand doesn't come along quite often. And, it's exciting. I thoroughly enjoy doing that as well. So tell us a little bit about .cloud and what you're doing over there. A number of folks out there might understand what .cloud is, but I'm sure there are others that probably don't know as much as they thought.
Right, got you. It's sometimes from outside the industry. People don't know what a registry is, and I could talk 3 paragraphs about that. We're basically the official registry for .cloud. So if you want a .cloud domain name, you would come to us. But we don't sell directly. We sell through our partner network. So we have partners. We do all of our business through the partners. So a big part of my job at the beginning was really building the brand and the communication side. So that's everything from building the website and messaging, the audience, working with the partners. We had to get a lot of partners onboarded. We worked with a lot of industry influencers because we needed people to use .cloud because we needed a story when we were launching about, using .cloud before we launched. So a lot of the beginning work was just launching, and that is like, a lot of groundwork. It was like a lot of work in a very short period of time. But we had a very successful launch, actually. On the first day, we sold 20,000 registrations. And that was actually one of the best ones for the industry at that time. That was a really good number. And we were also featured in like a lot of major tech publications. We worked with a outside PR agency to do that, a global PR agency. and also obviously communicating with the industry media as well. And then, of course, years later, we launched in China, which was a bit of a different launch, but we also went through some of those steps again in terms of launching. So after that, I actually became the head of the registry about a year or so later. And then there, I got more involved in the strategy and the partner management, operations as well. So I was, so it's sort of what I'm doing today is kind of the daily operations of the business, probably more towards the sales and marketing side. So we have some really great operational partners that take care of some of our operations, like you. For example, IQ Global with our analytics and some of our abuse as well. So leaving us to be able to do the sales and marketing side.
Sure. That's full disclosure. .cloud is a client of ours for our IQ Analytics and for some of our abuse management services. For certain, we do appreciate that. But I think .cloud arguably is considered one of the more better new TLDs I think that are out there, successful new top-level domain extensions that have been successful. What do you attribute, besides of course your own involvement, but what do you attribute to to its success?
Yeah, so I think going back to just .cloud, like the word itself, just intrinsically, it was such a relevant word at the time, and it was such a powerful word, I think. So I think right off the bat, .cloud was a beautiful domain to work on,
Yeah.
And also the fact that Aruba SPA, they were our parent company, and they really wanted us to focus on the long-term business. They really wanted us to focus on a sustainable business and international partnerships as well. Like that was key. So we had, I think, because we had the backing of a bigger company who had a more long-term vision, I think we were able to focus on the right things at the right time, and we didn't have to do sort of some crazy strategies that some others may have done, but that was just our business strategy.
Right.
So I think we were a small team, and we are one TLD. So it's something that I'll talk about a little bit more later. But we worked in two phases, and the first phase was just to get everything up off the ground. So those partnerships and the marketing work, building the audience, that was all like in the first year or two, I would say. And then in the second stage, we started working on the optimization, and that's where some of the data, we were getting the data for some of the campaigns we were doing, we were getting the renewal rates, because as you know, you have to wait an entire year to get the renewal data, although sometimes you can, the more data you have, the more you can kind of predict.
Right.
But, that's where we got, tools like IQ. So the second stage, I think, for us was really optimization. But I would say then, other than that, the success of .cloud, I think that we had a really strong focus on brand and communications. And, that was a beautiful thing about having a single TLD, is that you could really tell a story. You could really think about that audience for that TLD. And I think for us, at the time, of course, cloud was meaning like storage and scalability, but we always didn't want to be seen just as a vertical domain. We wanted to be seen as beyond that. We wanted to, it's hard to say generic domain or generic audience, because like, how do you market to a generic audience? But one thing we knew is that we needed to be bigger than cloud. We needed to focus more on something bigger than beyond .cloud. And that's why we always plugged into the themes of disruption and innovation and digital transformation and modern business. So whenever we told a story, we always thought about these themes. And we were, when we talked or we had case studies about domain names, we always linked them to these bigger themes, So I think that was a really important part of our success. And also that communication strategy, right? Because you want to tell that the domain is for everybody, but really it's, you have to tell a separate story to every single one of your audience, right?
Right.
So the cloud industry, of course, was one, but there was also like the startup industry as well. So we did a lot of different things for different industries. So for the cloud industry, at the beginning, we went to a lot of events. We did a lot of work in the community. When it came to social media, and we did a lot of we tried to reach tech influencers and startups, and we did at the beginning paid media. And then we use traditional PR to also reach the broad audience, right? So, and then we have, of course, the industry media. So I think that the brand marketing communication strategy, knowing really who you want to reach, what channels you want to reach them on, what kind of messaging you want to, and that has to change.
Right.
That has to change. Like every year, there will be a change in how the message is going to go out, because everything is changing like faster than you can believe, right?
Yes.
So for us, I think the storytelling was really interesting too. Like we really focused on the case studies, like why people chose those domains, what was their journey. We talked about their business. We tried to educate people on how to use domains or how other people were using it. And the second thing, I think, other than the marketing side, was the partnership side. Like we really viewed our partnerships like our channel is gold. Like without our channel, we're nothing. If you're a channel business, your channel is everything. So we thought always how channel comes first. We were always very authentic. We were very open with all our partners. Any big changes that were coming, they knew ahead of time. Everybody knew. And every time we made a decision, we thought about how it's going to affect our partners. And we did some changes. We had to make some changes to our premium program. We had to change our pricing. It was terrifying. Like I was terrified to tell people about changing the price, because I had seen other TLDs changing the price and all the backlash and everything.
Yeah.
But I think how you do something is how you communicate something to your partners is a big thing, is a really big thing. So I think those two things there were some of the reasons why .cloud is recognized in the industry as we are.
Yeah, I think early in your response here, you said something about the fact of having a single TLD, and so and focus, and that's one thing that I've always felt in business was extraordinarily important, was having focus. That you can be distracted by lots of things, and I'm not knocking anyone who has multiple top-level domains to administer or to market or anything, because you can still achieve success, but having that singular focus, can be really important in building a brand, for certain. What were some of the challenges, that you talked about a few challenges, early on, but I mean, I know you're working with .cloud is owned by a larger company, Aruba and so forth, but I'm kind of curious as to, what were the overall, challenges that you faced running a registry, in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the single TLD, and everybody who was running a registry was doing it for the first time, because in the new GTLD space, right? In the new GTLD space, everybody was doing it for the first time, and everybody was doing it in a different way, just like you said. I mean, there were ones that had different business strategies. There were some that had many. There were some that had a grouping. So it was very interesting to see everybody's strategy, and ours. Definitely the single TLD was nice because of the focus, but it was tough because we didn't have anything to compare it to. So, we weren't able to try different things with TLDs and then figure out which one, and then invest more in that one, or,
Right.
so we only had one, Also, for the, we also were not able to, we didn't necessarily have the bigger deals and the bigger budgets necessarily, because we only had the one, so
Yeah.
we couldn't, that the economy of scale as well, like when we were looking at partners and costs and stuff, that's also another factor. And I think because of that, all of that, we also had a small team, which totally made sense for one TLD. But that also meant we were really working in a startup environment, even though we had a big company behind us. Like everything we did, we were kind of operating on our own in some ways. So it was really like lean, everything we did, we had to kind of focus. And I mean, I still think we did some really, really big things. But one of the things we had to prioritize, like we had to go each phase, we had to prioritize each project,
Yeah.
right? So I think definitely like we had to choose every year what, we're going to focus on. And we, the year we launched in China, it was a lot of work to launch in China. The year we didn't launch our premium domains right away. I mean, we launched it, but we didn't really focus on it. So it took, a few years for us to launch premium domains, which was partly our choice because we wanted the brand to develop before we launched the premium domain. So, but because of the small team, we had to do everything in phases. And then just the tools as well, like the data analytics and the abuse, that was really, we didn't have those tools right out of the gate. And so it took us a while to find the right partners, find the right tools. And obviously those metrics, and our team has gotten really, really good. This beyond me, but we have a really great team that does some of our data analysis, and all of us together developing those KPIs for your business, looking at the renewal data. That's completely transformed our business strategy. But at the beginning, not having those tools out of the gate and also not having the data out of the gate, a lot of the decisions you made, you had to sort of make it on intuition or your past experience. But now it's a completely different type of business that we're running now as opposed to those early years.
Yeah, I think early on with the new top-level domains that there were not a lot of ancillary services that had been developed yet, such as analytics, or abuse management and that sort of thing. But just being able to, because the industry was new, like you're saying, and I think premium names became a big part of that. I think a lot of folks early on had a lot of people had high expectations for selling premium names, but I don't think people in the industry, well, I should say everyone, I don't want to generalize, but I believe that were more than a few that did not really understand how important it was to really have a strategy, for premium names and pricing and rolling those out. What were some of tell me a little bit more about how that all went for you.
Yeah, and just to go back a moment, and you're also a veteran in the industry, like the whole new GTLDs and how, there was no playbook, there was no guide, and I mean, of course you did have partners, you could speak to other TLDs, but a lot of times you were on your own, and there was no starter kit, there was no, and that's why you see every TLD was kind of, they had their own sort of way of doing things, right? Yeah. So it was just a crazy period, and the premium domains, I think, was. Again, you see so many different strategies there, so many different pricing, how they look at the revenue from that, how they look, and for us, we actually waited a few years. I think it was the right thing to do. So we did launch a group of premium domains, but they were very high priced, and because we knew we would come back later and we would price them. And I think that was the right thing to do because you need to build the brand first. If people don't know .cloud, they're not going to buy a $50,000 domain, and that's our like highest tier.
Yeah.
But they're not going to buy that unless they know it, they know the brand, they know. So you need to build the brand first,
Right.
and then after you do that, I mean, there's just it's a great, there's obviously the revenue side, but also the type of names. There's really great stories you can tell about those people, because when someone buys a domain for $50,000 or $20,000, they're going to do something with it. It's going to be like part of their marketing strategy because they've spent that much, right, on the domain. So they're going to have a strategy. And so it's an amazing way to tell people how important brand is and how much it can be worth. Like the domain for one person could be worth this, but the domain for another person that sees it as strategic can be worth that. It's also confusing, of course, to the end users because they're like, why is this premiums? Why is one domain I see for $7.99 and then another one's $50? It's very confusing for the end user. So I completely understand that, and more work needs to be done there. But for people who know, this is like a great story. So for us, we actually relaunched our premium domains in I think it was 2019. And which was so we added some names to our portfolio because it was so little what we had. We actually added some other expanded it a bit. We also changed the entire pricing structure. So the lowest tier we had, I think, retails for $200, and then we do go up to the higher price tiers. But we do have a lot more tiers in the lower price. We got rid of premium renewals. We kind of just go on the high low. So you pay once. You don't have to continue to pay. So I mean that's another decision you have to make. But that we decided to do that, and we had a really great success with that. I mean, right out of the bat, we had EPP sales. About a year later, we published a report, and we published our EPP channel sales, the partners that we're selling. We sold our top direct sales, and we had some amazing sales. We had like Energy.Cloud, that was like a $50,000 sale. We had Power.Cloud, that was $25,000. And just recently, we had a few really great sales too from our team. And one of them was Bit.Cloud, so BIT.Cloud. And another one was WP.Cloud. Can you guess, Pinky, what WP might be?
Oh, let me wonder. Let me wonder about that one. Wow, that's a nice one. That's a nice one. Nice little two-letter.
Yeah,
Very nice. It makes me feel
yeah.
good about
So
the
that
ones
went
that
to
I've got.
automatic.
It makes me feel good about the dot cloud names that.
The ones you have, the prices that you might have got. I mean, the great thing is that some people might have scooped up a few really great names from the beginning that were not in our premium,
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, WP is
Right.
WordPress.cloud,
Yeah,
so went to automatic,
yeah.
and so it's stories like that, like names like that you can, it's a really great proof point for your brand and a really great story you can tell. So I think premium domains is a side of the business which is important. It's very different from, you still need the standard domains business, no doubt, and that's, even if that's your primary business. That's the premium domains is a really interesting area. So
Yeah. It's. I think I've just noticed, especially in the last few years, more and more registries are paying attention to their premiums and how they are sold, marketed either, EPP or direct, and playing around with
yeah,
different price tiers and see, what price points for certain types of names, as we all know, trying to explain to
yeah,
people why certain,
yeah.
ranges of names cost more, than others. And it's an
Yeah,
ever evolving, I guess, art and science in a way.
it
Yeah,
is. It's partly,
yeah,
it is. It is because there is a bit of, the valuation and everything. We have an amazing team at Dot Cloud that does that.
yeah,
But part of it is also the creative side of things for
yeah,
sure, right?
yeah.
So, yes, I agree.
Well, we've talked quite a bit about a little bit about the business side, and how things got going at .cloud and your experience and journeys and wins and challenges along the way. But as I mentioned to the audience early on, wanted to really talk a little bit more about yourself in the industry, as a woman of color, born in India, growing up in Canada, working for an Italian company, doing business in China.
Yeah.
How has that shaped your views on running a business that really is truly international, in scope and in scale?
Yeah, such an interesting business. I mean, it's such an interesting topic, let's say, the dark side. And not the dark side, but there is sort of this side that we don't necessarily talk about a lot.
Right.
And I think it was you when I was talking to you before we came up with this, like I was born in India and I was growing up in Canada and working for an Italian company and doing business in China. And I was like, I never really, thought about how amazing that is. Like just for a second to think, that I was doing that. I don't think my parents ever thought I was going to be doing that when I was born in a little place in India called Raipur, because that's where I was born. I don't think that, but I do think they brought me to Canada for these types of experiences, absolutely, for a bigger, better life for me. So in a way, I hope I fulfilled their dreams for a daughter. Actually, like part of it, I think I was actually very well suited for an international job. And, especially in places like Asia, it's still very much a man's world in Asia. Like you'll still see a lot of like the big bosses are men, but like right under that, there's a lot of business managers that are women. Like when I was in China, the big boss, there was a lot of big bosses that were men, but they often had like a lot of women like right below them that were running the business. And I think I got along with everybody, but I got along with those women really, really well. And I think, the fact that I was Indian as well, like I think they saw a part of me in them being just, even though China is completely different from India, but I think they felt very much at ease. And I felt at ease with them. I think I had a lot of respect for different cultures, just even in Europe, everywhere I went, people had different values, different lifestyles, and I actually thought it was brilliant to see how people lived and did business in other parts of the world. And it blew my mind because I had a North American perspective, And I think when I went first to Europe, I think, my colleagues did say to me something like, "You're so North American in the way you think." And when I started going to these other places, I realized, oh, there's this whole other world and they do things differently. And it was really amazing. And I think that my whole experience and everything that brought me there, I think it really enhanced my ability to have build relationships over there and to understand the business over there. So I actually think it was a really great plus that I had so many influences and such a diverse background. And I think the China experience, I mean, we could spend a whole other podcast on that.
Yeah.
But it was also mind-blowing. And you've been there too. And
Many times.
it was just mind-blowing because like when you get there and you realize the ways in which China has surpassed us, like some of the technical advances, and you have this one idea of what's happening there, and then you actually go there, and it was just almost mind blowing. What's some of the infrastructure that's there, some of the technology that's there. So that was probably one of the I'm so grateful to have that experience to work in international business. And but I think there's also the dark side, because I would be lying if I said, I think this is one of the things we do. We go out there and say, oh, well, I'm doing this so well. Look at me. I'm here. I'm there, But, in the background, it was really hard. I mean, in the background, a lot of times I I didn't feel like I really belonged anywhere, like I wasn't Italian, I'm not North American, I'm not Chinese, I'm not, even in India, I wasn't Indian really because, I'd left India for a long time ago. I don't even know what it meant to be in India, and I'm doing business in India. Although there's another part of it that was just so lovely being in India doing business. Like it was amazing,
Yeah.
But there was this really feeling of, and as a woman too, like as a woman of color, I really felt alone sometimes, because I had challenges and I didn't really have anyone to turn to sometimes because like I didn't see other people like me, a lot of times I didn't see people like me in the industry. So where do I go to get support or mentorship? Like so that they can coach me on my specific lived experience. I mean, I can get coaching from men or, I can do that, but they're not going to be able to tell me how are they going to advise me from speaking from my lived experience as a woman, as a woman of color.
Right.
So that I think, and it wasn't even something we talked about or like I've had so many revelations in the last 2 years because of the work that the Black community have been doing. I mean, it opened my eyes also to my own experiences, to my own bias, to my own experience, that I realized that I didn't actually know about my own experience because it wasn't brought to my consciousness, So I think that that really there is really a side that that we don't speak about often,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to find places to speak about it like this, which is why I think it's amazing that you've given me a platform to talk a little bit about that. We didn't go into the details,
Right.
but in a way it was a great plus. But in another way, it was very isolating because I didn't see a lot of people doing, a woman and a woman of color in these areas and places where I was.
Where you mentioned where you were looking for places to go, I guess, to talk to others. Did you find those places?
Yeah. I did eventually, but not within the industry. I mean, of course, there are women in the industry, and we do talk, and we do have communities.
Right.
But for me, I think a lot of it was outside, finding mentors and coaches outside of the industry who were female or who knew about the experience. I actually spent a lot of time on Clubhouse, the app Clubhouse. When that came out last year, I'm just one of these people who just like, oh, something new is happening on the internet. What is it,
Yeah.
right? And I won't be like the very first person, but I'll be like the 20th person, right? And so I got invited to it, or I asked to get invited to it. And I think there was actually some domainers on there at the beginning. So I actually had heard about some people trying to sell domains through Clubhouse. So I think I was going to check that out. And I ended up instead, there was so many Black communities there. And of course, because this was Clubhouse for them, was a place for them to finally speak, like finally have a space, to speak. And I actually spent hours in these Black communities and understanding their struggles, things that we just got. It just happened for us, like going to the bank and getting a bank account, or being recognized for your work, like all of the things that I realized a completely different side. It was a real great education for me. I did not speak in any of those communities. I just listened. Later on, I did join a community, a wonderful community of Black women financial community, and I learned so much there. And I think that that's where I went, because I had to find other people like me to talk to and that had experiences that I had. So these communities are out there, and these people are out there. They're not necessarily within the industry, but they're definitely there. They're definitely there.
Yeah, that's it. Really interesting that you went and connected up, via Clubhouse. I think at least from my own experience, and I'm not talking about the domain industry or even, as a man, is I have found that going outside of your own industry sometimes to talk to others, to share about your challenges and, thoughts and dreams and all that sort of thing, can be a really therapeutic and just fantastic, to get other points of view, because sometimes, we're all busy sort of eating our own dog food, as we say, and we can't see,
Yeah,
what's going on outside of our own, bubble sometimes.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, there's people like you, but there's people like you. There are some people in industry that I felt very open
uh,
with to talk about my
yeah,
challenges. Like you're definitely one of them. Like those people, like to me, I really found it a gift to find those people in the industry that would sit and listen, that would try to help you, that would support you, that you could be vulnerable, that even encourage you to take a position or a challenge. There's a few people, a few of my male colleagues that encouraged me to take even the head of registry. I don't know if I would have done that without them saying you can do this. So I think it's really important to go outside the industry, but also to find the
yeah.
gems inside your
Well,
industry.
within
So
the domain industry, this is a bit of a question. I think we've touched about this, you and I, just in, personal conversations in the past. But, is it trauma, imposter syndrome, or both, for some of women in the industry? And I mean, the irony of
yeah.
asking the question as a man is not lost on me on this, but,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's the imposter syndrome. It's really interesting because I just yesterday I was on a panel. I don't know if you know Christina Beavis, that she used to work in the industry. She started her own
Mhm.
business for women, but she also started a community for women, and she actually invited me to speak about that topic, and we had an amazing discussion. And some of the things we talked about. Some people like imposter syndrome is like really misunderstood. I don't even know if people know that it's something that has been said. It was actually, I believe, originally research about high performing women. Like it was about them accomplishing more, doing more, and still feeling self doubt about their work and never feeling like they were good enough. Or so it's always that feeling of feeling like you're fake, you're going to be found out at any moment, and they're going to kick you out. I definitely had that. I had that all my life, and then I did call it imposter syndrome. And what we talked about a little bit, or yesterday, was, I mean, there's a personal perspective to the imposter syndrome, but there's this whole other social and from social bias. And there's this amazing article out there that my friend shared with me. She's a very enlightened friend of mine, always sharing this insights with me. But there's an article there says, it's from the Harvard Business Review, and it says, "Stop telling women they have imposter syndrome. What they have is trauma." And the reason is because part of the reason we have imposter syndrome is because of the environment we work in. There are no women, there are no role models. Women don't get recognition, they don't get validated. We don't have people that are mentoring us, trying to get us into the next role. So, of course, without any kind of validation, outside, external validation, we're not getting nominated to board of directors. When we are, it's a huge deal. It's happening, but it's not happening fast enough. We're not getting invited to speak as much as we should. We're
Mhm.
not getting invited to be advisors and counselors, or not advisors, and board members. So because of all of that, it's difficult for women. They always have this idea that they didn't belong, because they don't belong. Like the article actually talks about, we are actually working. I'm not supposed to be here. This environment was not created for me, was not created for someone like me to thrive in. Even though I made my way, challenging, I had a completely different lived experience than a white male of my
Mhm.
experience. And it's just something we'd never really realized so much until I didn't realize so much until now, how that's impacted me. And that's where the trauma comes from. The trauma comes from, it's not so much about, there is a personal psychology there,
Yeah.
absolutely. You can't deny that. but there's a social, like stop trying to fix women, like fix the environment that they're in. And I think that's an area that we need to research more about, a lot more. And so this article was great for awareness, but I think this is something that, needs more awareness, needs more education.
What a fabulous, I guess what I want to say is just, you've spoken so eloquently about the subject. I think that's really what I want to say.
Yeah.
But I think also when you said just now, stop fixing women, fix the environment. I just think that is a fantastic quote to use. But it also is.
Yeah, it's also not my
Yeah.
quote. I don't want to take credit for
Yeah.
that. That's all from the
Yeah.
article. And it's a great article. So those two ladies that wrote that article, yeah. But thank you. I wanted to bring it up because it's the type of article that you read and changes everything.
Yeah.
Like your head spins and like, wow, okay. They actually said something and I completely see it and like lights go off. And now my job is to share that with everybody else,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I'm doing, right? So
Well, it makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. I mean, I think it should be said more often because when you said it, it really, not that I'm sleeping here during the interview, but it just really kind of woke me up. But well, listen, you really
Yeah.
shared a lot with us today, and I definitely have learned a lot, and I hope our audience has learned a lot from your comments. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we go? From a personal side, about your influences along the way in your journey?
Yeah, I think that I just wanted to, I'm a big believer in the personal journey. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about the professional journey and we spend a lot of time talking from the business person, the person that we
Yeah.
are. But me personally, I think I really believe in the personal journey. And I think that means, really understanding who you are, really understanding where you came from, your ancestors, what is your purpose, what brings you joy, understanding yourself psychologically. I mean, that is the only way you can grow. If your mind doesn't grow, you only see the world through that, wherever your consciousness is. When you expand your consciousness, that's where you see. So I really believe in exploration, self-exploration, transformation. There's this amazing quote by Confucius that says, "We have two lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one." And you have to think about it again. But what that really means is we really only have one life, but we don't really start living that second life until we know that's our only life. And when we have these crazy experiences happen to us, grief, we lose someone, the pandemic, which was, like a shared experience, we realize, wow, we only have one life, And what a shame it would be if you lived that life and you didn't find out who you were and you didn't have a chance to really be who you are. So for me personally, I'm spending, I spent a huge part of my career just trying to fit in, just trying to, and I think I'm really trying to step into my power by tapping into the ancient wisdom of my ancestors, other cultures. And that is where I'm getting the power from, not from my business or from my title or from my company. And I'm not looking for those places anymore for who I am and for validation of who I am. That doesn't mean I shouldn't be there, but I also think there's so many exciting things going on right now in technology. I'm in different communities learning about decentralization. I'm learning about NFTs. It's like this internet happening all over
Right,
again,
yeah.
because I used to spend my time in the IRCs and the BB, and I'm like, wow, what is happening here?
Yeah.
So I think never stop figuring out who you are and growing and beginner's mind, all of those things. I think that from a personal perspective, those are all the really important values that I have. So
Well, Mo, thank you so much for all of your comments. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to talk with you today. I think that I will look forward to seeing you in person, because I know we've talked a lot over Zoom and so forth over the years, but I think as and myself, we've had these shared experiences over the years, but we're very fortunate being in our industry to be able to travel and experience so many different cultures and all that sort of thing. And I definitely look forward to getting out there at some point again and being able to see you at in person. But I'm sure some of our viewers may want to meet you in person as well, because you've been very inspiring today. So thank you again so much, and I look forward to catching up with you and hearing more about what you're doing again in the future.
And thank you, Pinky. Like I am so grateful that you invited me, and that you said, hey, speak about the issues that you want to speak about, tell your story, tell your journey. You encouraged me, and really you're like a guiding light in the industry. When I see you, I'm like, I know I'm in the right place, So you're just a wonderful human being, and I really hope your audience got something out of this. They can feel free to find me or contact me on my channels. But yeah, again, thank you so much for inviting me today.
You're very welcome. Thank you, and thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Looking to improve insight into your TLD's performance so that you can fuel growth? Learn more about IQ Analytics at iq.global. Do you have feedback or topic ideas? Reach out to us at hello@iq.global, and thanks for listening.